My manager blamed me publicly, so I gave her credit privately to HR. Hook. Have you ever been thrown under the bus by your boss in front of everyone? That moment when your stomach drops, your face burns, and you're fighting back tears while trying to look professional. 3 months ago, my manager Sarah humiliated me during our quarterly review meeting, blaming me for her mistakes in front of our entire team and 2 vice presidents. But instead of lashing out, I chose a different path. I documented everything, built my case meticulously, and then gave her credit where it was due, privately to HR. By the end of this story, Sarah was clearing out her desk while I was being offered her position. Presentation and initial CTA. Welcome to Dismissal Diaries, where we share real workplace stories that end with someone packing their things. If you enjoy seeing workplace justice served or want to learn how to protect yourself in toxic environments, hit subscribe and the notification bell now. My story might just save your career one day. Content. I still remember the exact moment everything changed. Picture this: a glass-walled conference room on the 32nd floor of our downtown Chicago office. 12 people seated around a polished mahogany table, including 2 vice presidents who had flown in specifically for our quarterly review. The PowerPoint presentation showing our team's project metrics glowed on the screen, numbers that should have been celebrating our success. I was actually feeling confident that morning. Our marketing team had exceeded targets on the Halstead account, a major pharmaceutical client worth $7 million in annual revenue. As project lead, I'd put in 60-hour weeks for 3 months straight, often staying until 9 at night fixing the constant stream of urgent revisions from my manager, Sarah. Sarah had been with the company for 8 years, 4 years longer than me. She had a reputation for being demanding but delivering results. What most people didn't see was how those results actually happened. For the past year since she became my direct supervisor, I'd been doing most of her work while she took the credit. It wasn't unusual for her to forward me emails at 4:30 on Friday afternoons with notes like, "Need this by Monday morning," or "Fix this before the client call tomorrow." But I tolerated it because I loved my job, and frankly, I was good at it. Plus, I was playing the long game, building relationships throughout the company, documenting my contributions, and waiting for the right opportunity to move up. That quarterly review meeting was supposed to be our team's moment to shine. The Halstead campaign had generated 32% more leads than projected. The client was thrilled. Our team had pulled off something remarkable despite constant timeline changes and scope creep from above. Meaning Sarah, I'd prepared the presentation deck as instructed, highlighting our team's collaborative efforts rather than individual contributions. That's the kind of professional I am. I believe good leaders share credit and take responsibility. Sarah had reviewed and approved the deck 3 days earlier without changes, which was unusual and should have been my first warning sign. When it was our team's turn to present, Sarah stood up and began walking through the slides. Everything seemed normal until she reached the slide about challenges we'd overcome. Unfortunately, we had some significant setbacks with this project that almost cost us the client, she said, clicking to a slide I had never seen before. One that definitely wasn't in the deck I'd prepared. The new slide had a glaring red arrow pointing downward beside the words "communication failures" and "missed deadlines." My heart started racing immediately. I had to personally intervene multiple times when certain team members, at this point, she actually turned and looked directly at me, repeatedly missed internal deadlines and failed to communicate properly with the client. The conference room went silent. I felt every eye in the room turn toward me. My face burned with humiliation as she continued. In particular, there was an incident where incorrect information was sent to the client that required extensive damage control. If I hadn't caught these mistakes and corrected them, we likely would have lost the account. Now, here's what actually happened. Sarah had insisted on communicating directly with the client herself, cutting me out of emails despite my role as project lead. She had changed deliverables without updating our team, leading to confusion and rework. And that incorrect information she mentioned, that was data she had provided and insisted we include, despite my documented emails questioning its accuracy. As she spoke, I watched the VPs exchange glances. I saw my teammates staring at their notepads, unwilling to make eye contact. My reputation, built carefully over 4 years of dedicated work, was being systematically dismantled in front of the people who could determine my future at the company. I had a choice to make in that moment. I could interrupt and defend myself, potentially coming across as confrontational and unprofessional. I could sit silently and accept the blame, or I could take the third option, appear to accept responsibility professionally now, while planning my response strategically. When Sarah finished and asked if anyone had questions, our VP of Operations, James, looked at me and asked, "Do you have anything to add about these issues?" I took a deep breath and said, "I appreciate Sarah bringing these challenges to light. Every project has its learning opportunities, and I take full responsibility for any shortcomings on my part. I'm committed to improving our processes moving forward." Sarah looked momentarily surprised. She'd clearly expected me to get defensive. James nodded, seeming impressed by my professionalism. The meeting moved on. But I felt sick inside, not just from the humiliation, but because I knew this wasn't a one-time event. This was a pattern, and if I didn't address it, my career at this company was effectively over. After the meeting, several colleagues came by my desk with sympathetic looks or gentle shoulder squeezes, the workplace equivalent of attending a funeral. "That was rough," whispered Taylor from the creative team. "We all know that's not what happened." I thanked them but didn't engage further. I wasn't going to start gossiping or complaining. Instead, I was formulating a plan. That evening, I didn't go home right away. Instead, I stayed late at the office and began what I would call my credit collection project. First, I went through my email archives and found every relevant communication with Sarah over the past 6 months. I found the emails where she had provided the incorrect data. I found her messages changing directions at the last minute. I found my own warnings about timeline issues that she had dismissed. I also pulled up our project management software and took screenshots of the original timelines compared to the actual completion dates, clearly showing where the delays had originated, with Sarah's approvals and changes. Then I dug deeper. I discovered that Sarah had been systematically undermining not just me, but 3 other team members as well. She had created a working environment where she controlled all client communications, took credit for successes, and deflected failures onto her team. Over the next 2 weeks, I continued building my case while maintaining absolute professionalism at work. I didn't change my behavior towards Sarah at all. I remained responsive, helpful, and dedicated. When she sent emails with unreasonable demands, I responded with solutions rather than complaints. When she took credit for my ideas in meetings, I simply nodded and supported her points. This was crucial to my strategy. I didn't want her to suspect anything or change her behavior. The more comfortable she felt, the more careless she became. By week 3, I had compiled an extensive documentation package, 47 emails, 32 screenshots from our project management system, meeting notes, and a detailed timeline of events showing the actual workflow of the Halstead project versus Sarah's version. I also had statements from 2 colleagues who had experienced similar treatment and were willing to go on record. One of them, Michael from the design team, had nearly been fired the previous year after Sarah blamed him for missing a major deadline. A deadline that had become impossible after Sarah changed the deliverables 3 times in the final week. Now came the most delicate part, taking this information to human resources without appearing vindictive or unprofessional. I scheduled a meeting with Diane from HR, someone I had built a good relationship with over the years. I framed the conversation carefully. This wasn't about me complaining or seeking revenge. This was about a concerning pattern of behavior that was affecting team performance and potentially putting client relationships at risk. When I met with Diane, I started by saying, I want to discuss a situation that I believe is impacting our team's effectiveness and potentially our client relationships. I've prepared some documentation to provide context, but I want to emphasize that I'm bringing this forward out of concern for the company, not personal grievance. Diane looked concerned but appreciative of my approach. I walked her through the timeline of events, showing her the documentation I'd compiled. I was careful to stick to facts rather than emotions or accusations. I didn't say, Sarah is a terrible manager who throws people under the bus. Instead, I presented evidence and said, there appears to be a pattern of communication issues that have led to project complications. What made my case particularly compelling was that I wasn't just defending myself. I was showing how Sarah's management style had affected multiple team members and potentially put major client relationships at risk. After reviewing my documentation for nearly an hour, Diane looked up with a serious expression. This is extremely concerning, and I appreciate how thoroughly you've documented everything. I want you to know we take this type of situation very seriously. I'll need to discuss this with the leadership team, but I assure you it will be handled appropriately. I thanked her and added, I understand this is a sensitive matter. I'd appreciate discretion as the process moves forward. My goal isn't to create conflict, but to ensure we're operating in a way that best serves our clients and team. As I left the HR office, I felt a strange mixture of relief and anxiety. I had done what I needed to do to protect myself and my colleagues, but I also knew that office politics could be unpredictable. Would Sarah find out I had gone to HR? Would this backfire on me somehow? For the next week, nothing seemed to change. Sarah continued her usual behavior, apparently oblivious to what was happening behind the scenes. I maintained my professional demeanor, completing my work with the same dedication as always. Then, on Monday morning of the following week, I noticed Sarah was called into a meeting with James, our VP, and Diane from HR. The meeting lasted over 2 hours. When Sarah returned to her desk, her face was pale and she immediately closed her office door. By Wednesday, rumors were circulating. By Friday, it was official. Sarah was being put on a performance improvement plan. While the details weren't made public, it was clear from the subdued way she interacted with the team that something significant had changed. 2 weeks later, I was called into a meeting with James and our department head, Christine. My stomach dropped. Was I in trouble now? Had Sarah somehow turned this around on me? Instead, Christine started the meeting by saying, First, we want to thank you for bringing some important management issues to our attention. The way you handled a difficult situation shows remarkable professionalism and integrity. James nodded in agreement. We've been evaluating our team structure, and in light of recent developments, we're making some changes. Sarah will be transitioning to another role within the company. Christine continued, We've been impressed with your project management skills and leadership potential. We'd like to offer you the position of Senior Marketing Manager, effectively taking over Sarah's responsibilities. Your approach to the Halstead project, despite the challenges, demonstrated exactly the kind of leadership we value here. I was stunned. I had hoped for a resolution, but I hadn't expected a promotion. Thank you for your confidence in me, I managed to say. I'm committed to fostering a collaborative and transparent team environment. That's exactly why we're making this change, James replied. We need leaders who lift their teams up, not tear them down. The transition happened quickly. By the following Monday, Sarah had been moved to a non-management position in another department. I later learned that the company had given her the option to accept the reassignment or leave. She chose to stay, though I rarely saw her after that. My first action as the new manager was to call a team meeting where I outlined my management philosophy: transparency, shared credit for successes, and collective problem-solving when challenges arise. The relief on my colleagues' faces was palpable. In the months since then, our team metrics have improved significantly. Employee satisfaction scores are up 47%. We've secured 2 new major clients, and most importantly, people aren't afraid to take creative risks or admit when they need help. Looking back, I learned several valuable lessons from this experience. First, documentation is everything. If I hadn't kept those emails and screenshots, it would have been my word against Sarah's, and as the more senior employee, she likely would have been believed. Second, how you present a complaint matters as much as the complaint itself. By focusing on company impact rather than personal grievance, I ensured that HR and leadership saw this as a business issue, not just interpersonal drama. Third, maintaining professionalism, even when treated unfairly, ultimately works in your favor. Had I lashed out at Sarah during that meeting or badmouthed her to colleagues, I would have undermined my own credibility. And finally, workplace karma is real, though sometimes you need to help it along with carefully presented evidence. I sometimes wonder if Sarah learned anything from this experience. I hope she did. Management isn't about taking credit or deflecting blame. It's about building a team that trusts each other enough to do their best work. As for me, I've implemented a completely different leadership style on our team. We have weekly stand-ups where everyone shares both successes and challenges. I've created a system where project contributions are clearly tracked and recognized. And most importantly, I've made it clear that mistakes are learning opportunities, not chances for blame. 3 months after my promotion, we faced a significant challenge with a new client project. A miscommunication with the client had led to us creating content that missed the mark. When we gathered to discuss what happened, one of my team members looked terrified, clearly expecting to be thrown under the bus. Instead, I said, "As the team leader, I take responsibility for this miscommunication. Now let's figure out together how to fix it and what we can learn from it." The look of relief and subsequent enthusiasm for finding solutions told me everything I needed to know about the culture we were building. The Halstead account, which was at the center of the original drama with Sarah, they've now expanded their contract with us by 30% and specifically requested that our team handle all their campaigns moving forward. The client contact actually told me, "The level of communication and transparency from your team now is exceptional. We feel like true partners." That's the difference between leadership and mere management. Leaders create environments where everyone can do their best work. They absorb blame and distribute credit. They focus on solutions rather than scapegoats. I never set out to get Sarah fired or take her job. I simply refused to be the scapegoat for someone else's failures. By documenting meticulously, presenting my case professionally, and maintaining my integrity throughout, I not only protected my career, but ultimately created a better workplace for my entire team. Closing with CTA. That quarterly review meeting could have been the beginning of the end for my career. Instead, it became the catalyst for positive change. Not just for me, but for our entire team. Sometimes standing up for yourself isn't about making a scene. It's about quietly gathering your evidence and presenting your case to the right people at the right time. If you've ever been in a similar situation, or if you're in one right now, remember that documentation is your best defense. Save those emails. Take screenshots. Keep a work journal. And when the time comes to present your case, do it with professionalism and focus on how the situation impacts the company, not just you personally. I'd love to hear your workplace stories in the comments. Have you ever been blamed for someone else's mistakes? How did you handle it? And if you found this story helpful, please subscribe to Dismissal Diaries for more real workplace stories that might just help you navigate your own career challenges. Hit that like button and notification bell so you never miss a new story. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply ensuring that the truth comes to light.